Hey guys, Kevin Ruff review for the series premiere of the new series on USA, Queen of the South, and this is season 1, episode 1, of course, the pilot, but Piloto, actually, it's called. It's not called pilot, it's called Piloto, which is actually really clever. I was really looking forward to the show, definitely, I mean, for so many reasons, mainly because of the fact that it's USA, and they're the network responsible for giving us Mr. Robot, one of the best shows of the summer, but not just of the summer, on TV right now, and probably one of the best shows I've ever watched. I mean, there are so many great things about that show. Such a great hidden gem last summer that I don't think enough people saw. But luckily, over time, has become very, very popular, just like Unreal has, which I'm very happy about. But because of the success of the show, I was really looking forward to the show. I thought, all right, USA's, really trying to change up things. I think it's going to be another really compelling show. And overall, I have to say, was this as good as the pilot for Mr. Robot? Oh, fuck no, definitely. This is not nearly as interesting as pilot for Mr. Robot, but still a pretty damn good pilot. I really enjoyed this premiere. I really did get into it. I thought this was really good overall. Was it perfect? No. I mean, most of this was exposition, setting up her life, setting up her character, but it was necessary exposition to see what she's gone through, basically see what this character is going through. By the way, Teresa Mendoza is not a real person, but she very much felt like a real person. Just the way they fleshed out her character, you would think that she was a real person, and that's something that works really well here. Let's just get into this episode because there's a lot to talk about, and overall, I really enjoyed it. So, we start with Teresa talking about being poor in Mexico as she exits a helicopter, and she says that being rich is a lot better, and she runs the biggest drug empire in the Western Hemisphere. She's proof of the American dream. She says, don't judge, and we see that she's this huge queenpin, which is a legit thing. There are queenpins in the world, and she says the trick is to stay alive long enough to enjoy it. She shot, says it's been coming her way since Sinola, and basically, we've now seen that she's gonna die, which I guess that some people are gonna say, oh, it's anticlimactic, but this show is showing her rise and fall. We're gonna see her rise, and then eventually we're gonna see how she did die, and I think it's a good way to start, knowing that she died, knowing that she failed. I mean, most movies, about drug lords, they end with them dead, so it's not really surprising that she is dead, and already we know she's gonna die. Now, the rest of the show is gonna be how she died, and basically she says it's been a long coming, and we see her in Mexico, younger, changing money for tourists, and says Guero, a guy from Texas, was her drug of choice. And another guy then comes up and manhandles her. It's her boss who says she works for, and Guiro, however you pronounce it, Guiro, he beats the shit out of him for touching her. Teresa says the sweetest thing anyone's done for her. He says since she's out of a job, she should come with him. We then see them going into a nightclub, and she says Brenda, Chino, and Guiro became her friends. Brenda gives her a bump of coke in the bathroom. She goes out to the dance floor, dances with another guy, while Guero dances with another woman, and he comes and grabs her away, and Teresa says that he protected her, and she didn't care that he was a drug runner. Later they kiss, and right away these two get very close, and this was definitely very quick, the way this was all done. I mean, they kiss, he undressed her in the parking lot. She says that he was like her heroine as he does her on the car in the parking lot, and basically he was really a great thing in her life, and I like the way that they definitely show this. Thought that was definitely very well done, and this episode itself is divided into different acts, because after this we see how Teresa meets the Don. Basically, we see Guero takes her to a cartel party, and she says on Christmas he took her to meet his godfather, and kind of like the Godfather in many ways, but it's a Spanish Godfather, so Don Epifanio. Just picture, I guess, picture Marlon Brando, but like Spanish, I guess. That's the best way to describe it, because he very much reminded me of the Godfather, but again, he's, Spanish. So Guero leaves her for a moment to go to see the Don, and Epifanio, I cannot pronounce these names, I'm sorry, they're just hard to pronounce. Epifanio tells his right hand, Cesar, about his political aspirations. When you don't have the accent, it's kind of hard to pronounce these names, I'm not gonna lie. And he says that he has to distance himself from the business. He says he will begin to hand over day-to-day operations to him, but is concerned because the guy's a bit wild. So Guero comes in and is warmly welcomed. He looks out the window, sees Teresa, and Epifanio goes to take a call from Camilla, and finally, a name I can actually pronounce, who says that she won't host his party. She tells him to come upstairs now. Brenda takes Teresa upstairs, but Teresa says, stop it, don't touch anything. Brenda goes into the bathroom, and Epifanio argues with Camilla, and Teresa hears them arguing. She says that she built this empire, and she's not going to walk away, and clearly, there's something going on here. He insists that he'll be governor of Sinola, and she says no. She helped build this empire, and now he wants rid of it. He doesn't want to be part of this anymore, and she says she's not a governor's wife. Epifanio says that this is about legitimacy, and says the business will still run, but without them at the helm, and he says once he's elected, they'll be more powerful. She she asks Olani, says 1 or 2 years in the office, and Camilla says that he's asking her to stop doing the only thing she's good at, and she says that she got him in the mess that he was, and if not for her, he'd be a dirt poor farmer still. So it's clearly a situation where she feels that they should continue this empire, he feels that they should end it. We don't really know what's going on here, but we're definitely drawn in. I like that we're kind of like a fly on the wall in the scene, just like Teresa overhearing it. You know, she's intrigued, but she also doesn't know if she should really interfere with what's going on. And she tells him they're expanding into Texas and she'll take it and he can have his election without her. And he says he'll provide her with products she needs and he can think of it as Al money. And she says that Maria's packing for her and Epifanio says that she'll be back. She says Ron hands him her ring and she calls him farmer, says that he still uses the Ron fork. And Epifanio sees Teresa, says it's Camilla's fault, not hers, and he tells her to enjoy the party, and clearly you don't really know if he's telling the truth. It actually is Camilla's fault, and, you know, from my view, it seems like it is kind of Epifanio's fault, but he tells her to enjoy the party. He'll be down soon. Teresa thanks him and goes. Brenda gushes about the fancy toilets, and then we go more into Teresa and Guiro. Basically, we see Teresa and Guero moved up the ranks fast, and they were happy. We see she now lives in this very fancy house and is rich and is in very ritzy clothes, and this is really, you know, when she was very rich. And she talks to Brenda on the phone, but then ends the call. And when she sees Guero is home, it looks like he's in bad shape. He tells her that they were federals at the airstrip, and they opened up on them. He says that Susanna is gone, and he wants her to be prepared. We see a flashback then of Guero giving her a phone, says if this phone rings, he's dead. He has prepped her with a go bag with cash and a passport, and he really is a sense that he might die, and she might have to take this bag if he does die. And he says this Noma can be traded for your life. Says take it to Epifanio. Only not Cesar. So Teresa says excite her, and she thinks that he really loves her. Teresa then checks because he trusts her enough to give her this bag, and Teresa checks the gun from the bag. Says teach me how to use this, and it really was a very cool scene the way it was done, the way he taught her to use a gun. So Guero then wakes to Teresa, wishing him happy anniversary. She has balloons all over their room, and he says, how did she get all this and in here without him knowing? And he says he's supposed to sleep with one eye open in his job. She says that sounds like a drug runner, and they joke around. He flips her over, gives her another lesson in never letting her guard down. He kisses her. He asks what's wrong. She says she had never had a first anniversary of anything before, and says she always mistrusted people. Guero says he doesn't care about the past, and the present belongs to them. She smiles. He tells her he loves her. She replies in Spanish. They kiss again. Teresa then soaks in the hot tub, and really just it's paradise at this point. They're having a great time, and their relationship was really well done here. I won't really say that they had chemistry on because it was only done this first episode, but from what I saw, they worked really well together. And Teresa soaks in the tub, smoking a joint, watching Scarface. She says she was living in a dream, too good to last, and pretty much that all ends in this next scene. Basically, Teresa then gets a phone call, sees it's not from her regular phone, and immediately she's freaking out because it's not from a regular phone. She runs to find the phone, bringing downstairs in their mansion. It's in a drawer. She answers, and a man says, you don't know me, but Guero is dead. He says, get out of the house now. And obviously, he told her, look, take the bag if I'm dead. So she takes the bag and runs, calls Brenda, gets Tony, says, get Tony and run, says they might be coming for Chino, and this is such an intense scene. This is something that I really love. The intensity in this scene really was great. Brenda sees men come in, curses, he has his headphones on, is snoring coke and doesn't hear. She takes Tony, hides in the closet. Teresa says she's on the way, says don't make it sound. Two men come in the house, greet him, acting like things are cool. They snort some coke. They ask how long he and Guero have been running their own coke on the boss's dime. One man grabs a meat cleaver and tells Chino he can die fast or slow. He says he didn't do it. Teresa tells Brenda go now. Chino tells him he's in debt. He offers to cut them in. Tony and Brenda climb down the balcony. Chino lies, says Brenda is gone to her mother's. They cut off some of his fingers. Now, that is how you do something brutal. I mean, take that, feed the beast. That's how you do it. Teresa then tells Brenda, you can't look, just run, but she looks. She sees them shoot Chino in the head, and she runs, but they saw her, and Teresa loads them in the car, knowing that they could be the next one. I mean, obviously we know Teresa's not going to die, but this was a very intense scene. I think they did a really good job with it. So Teresa runs down one guy, then drives away, and a hail of gunfire, and, this hail of gunfire, and Brenda's sobbing, says they probably already knew about the safe house, and she snorts some coke. Teresa speeds along. Teresa lies to Tony and says his dad will meet them, and Teresa says Guero told them that she could go to Epifanio, and some SUVs pull up, men with guns get out, open fire on the SUV. Teresa drives in, reverse, and crashes into a truck, and Brenda and Tony get out and run. Teresa runs the SUV, truck blows up, and such an intense scene. I really liked the way that was done, and definitely one of the highlights of this episode was that scene. That really was just a really intense scene, and that's something I noticed the show does really well, is it really handles intensity in a very good way, and I really appreciate the way that was done. I really did enjoy that overall. So basically, she goes for door to door begging for help. no one seems like they're gonna open the door, and someone finally does open it, though, and she runs through a graffiti-splattered door. Teresa runs through a parking garage all alone. She says she thought that she was out of the cold with Guero, but was wrong, and she slips along a street in the dark and then to an apartment building. She unlocks the door with the key that Guero gave her, and she's in the safe house and sits down breathing heavily. And let me just say, one of the best parts of this entire episode was Guero dying, because this really gives Teresa, the actress that plays her, which I can't think of her name right now, I'll tell you in a second when I talk about who plays her, but basically, it really gives her the chance to see her acting ability. She's all alone in this scene. It was really cool, and basically, she pulls up her shoes and shirts and pants for air. She's freaking out. She gets another shirt, grabs her bag good out of the closet, and she pulls out the passport, snorts a bit of coke from the bag, and Teresa starts crying and then sobs hard, and she talks about how drugs kind of make her feel better. It's kind of like Mr. Robot in that sense, where this seems to make her feel better, but she's sobbing hard. She looks at the notebook that Guero left her, and she opens it, flips through the pages. She hears a noise. Someone comes down, and it's men with guns. She stares at them. One puts his gun up and asks what she's reading. He takes it from her, says that she must be tired from running, and she tells Guero she knows nothing, asks where he is, and Guero tells Potty that she's asking about Guero. Guero says that Guero was skimming from Batman, who that's the guy that they're looking for. He's called Batman, and says that her man is dead. He gets in her face, and she calls him a son of a bitch, and he slaps her hard, and Pot tries to stop, I don't know how you call it, Pot, he tries to stop Guero, who's ready to rape her. Guero says she was gonna die anyway, so it's a waste. He pulls her pants off. She stares at Pot, who walks away. Guero rapes her. It's a really hard scene to watch. Teresa says, when you think your life is over and hit bottom, she saw herself, not Jesus, and it's her from the future looking spiffy, and her future self says, go on, you know what to do. She gets her gun from the bag, shoots him. Now, we don't exactly know how she does this, how she sees her future self, but I think this is more Teresa. This is what she imagines herself to be. This is what she wants to be, and she's hoping that she turns out as successful as she ends up, and I think that was a very well done scene. I really did enjoy that overall, and she asks if Guero's really dead, and I really enjoyed that. So, basically, Pot comes in, she holds a gun on him, saying, don't move. She grabs up her stuff while holding the gun on him. She backs up the stairs, leaves it a run, and like I said, just really good intense stuff. I think they really handle intensity very well here, and definitely one of the things that resonates most with me in this pilot is the action. So she then calls Epifanio. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce his name. He comes for her. He's alone. She hides at first, but then comes to sit with him. She asks if Guero's really dead, because she's heard that he's dead, but also it's from all the enemies. It's from all the people that want to go after them. So she's wondering, are they just saying this to threaten her or scare her? Because she really needs to know if he's actually dead, and he says that he is. And it's really sad, because you saw this, she was able to settle down. She was able to have this life with him. Now, is it a bit rushed? Yes, but do I care? Oh, yeah, because she totally had this life, She got to kind of be at peace and was completely ripped from her. And basically, he says he is. She gives him the notebook, but says she never read it. He says he has to make an example when people steal. He says they know that she didn't know anything, but letting a woman escape is a shame. Epifanio says that he can't get involved. She says Guero told her that she could trade the book for her life. Epi kisses her head and says sorry. He walks out with a notebook, and Teresa stares at his men, follows. She goes stand in front of his car. Epifanio gets back out. She says no one else, and he has to help her. She puts a gun to her head. She says no, and I do this, and she says that she's already dead, she'll do it herself, and she says she will haunt the living shit out of him. Says how will they look for a governor? He asks if she has a passport. She says yes. He asks if she has money. She says yes. Epifanio says all right, and holds out his hand for her gun. She hands it over. He says let's go. They drive around to the desert. He touches her arm tenderly on the drive. Her future self says thing is something fast, something has changed, and as the dawn gets a call, she spots a gun under his jacket left in the seat, and back on the road, she looks at Epifanio and then points the gun at him. She says stop the car. He asks what she's doing. She says let me out. The Dawn says she's safe, but she insists. She shoots the driver when he won't stop the car. They drive off the road and crash, and really crazy the way it was done. I mean, obviously she's trying to get out of there, but she then comes to, and it's a light, and she crawls out of the car whimpering. The SUV is flipped over on top, and she crawls out dragging her leg with the gun still in her hand, and Epifanio is alive and asks for her help, and she says if you leave me now, you'll die. And we know obviously she's not going to die, but in this scene, it's just really well done. He says, help me, I'll protect you. Teresa gets closer, and he says, come on. She comes closer, he holds out his hand, and she grabs her bag and the notebook. She limps back, looks at him, then walks away, leaves him in bad shape. She limps through the desert and struggles with her injured leg. She comes upon a tire shop down the road. The old man looks at her warily, and she gets some water from the fountain and then throws it up. He pours her some tequila, drops in a small scorpion, and really weird the way that was done. The clear liquid turns amber. He soaks a cloth in and then treats the wound on her leg. leg. She moans in pain. He pours her a shot of tequila and tells her that she drink it fast. She does. She limps in the bathroom to clean up. Hears car doors slamming. She hides the notebook in the bathroom. Two men come and grab her. They shove her into a van, drive her away. She comes to being carried through a drug workhouse, and really, this girl can't catch a break. I mean, really, constantly trying to run away, and they keep catching her, and the man lies her down, locks her into a chain link cage, and she looks around, and she's now in a drug warehouse, and she works the ropes tied on her wrist after she finds a piece of metal. She gets loose and explores further. She breaks a glass mirror after putting her sleeve over her hand, and a woman then comes to see her and notices that the mirror is broken, and this is basically where we actually start the plot of the show, is in this next scene. Which I gotta say was very well done, because I think all this exposition was definitely worth it, because that gets us to the actual plot of the show. Because she takes this silver of glass gently from her hand, then sits across from her. She has her Teresa's hand, and it's Camilla, Epifanio's wife. She says the gas station she stumbled upon was on her mule route, and she says that her husband Fanio called her several times, saying he was looking for a girl, and that he had been in an accident, and Camilla asks where she knows her from, and Teresa says the Christmas party at her house with Guero, and Teresa says that Guero's dead. Camilla asks why she was out there, and says that my husband chased you in the desert, then asks why he went to such lengths, and Teresa doesn't answer because she doesn't really know, and I mean, honestly, I don't think Teresa really knows why he went to such lengths, and Camilla says, take her downstairs. Teresa asks where she is. Camilla says, Dallas, Texas, then says, welcome to America. She walks out, and we see future Teresa telling her that she's gonna love America. That is how this episode ends. Basically, she's now in America. She needs to face that, and that is how we end this overall. So overall, I really did enjoy this premiere. Not too much to say about it, mainly because it was basically just setting things up, and it was a lot of exposition, but it was really worth it. We get the sense that Teresa is now going to be in America. This is going to be a much different experience for him. Looking forward to seeing how that's all going to go down, because there's a lot of interesting stuff, I think, going on in this show that I really did enjoy overall, and especially the performances. I think a lot of them are very strong here, especially Alice Braga as Teresa really stuck out to me. She's a very good character. I really love what she did in this episode. Definitely, she was fantastic. I mean, just her acting ability, especially in scenes that are very intense, I think she handled those very well, and also I'm looking forward to seeing how she goes from this really scared girl to this really strong Queenpin. How does she go through that transformation? That's something I'm really looking forward to, is seeing what's going on with that, and especially how does she overcome this tragedy, because clearly Guero dying is something that she's not really ready to face. She kind of has to, but she's kind of been thrown into this situation where she doesn't really know what to do, and now she's basically told that, oh, this is what you have to do. She's being forced to do all this stuff, and I really like what she did in the show. I think she did a very good job. I really liked her character. Justina Mikado as Brenda. Not really any huge scenes here, but I think she overall did a very good job. I really liked her character. She was really good. Hemki Madeira as Pot. We're going to see this guy again, definitely. I don't really know, again, how you pronounce his name, but I think he was really good. And then the one person that definitely stuck out to me, Veronica Falcone as Camilla. She was fantastic. I loved her character. I mean, you can just see she is such presence on this show. She's very much experienced with this kind of thing. She knows exactly what she's doing, and she knows that Teresa is totally the person that should be thrown in this situation. I'm looking forward to seeing how she is on this show. And then I guess the only other person I'll talk about is Joaquim de Almeida as Don Epifanio. He really was fantastic. I really liked his character. I think he did a really good job. The other characters haven't been introduced yet, so I can't really say anything about them. Mark Consuelos is going to be on this show, which is interesting. Kelly Ripa's husband, which is, honestly, I'm looking forward to seeing what he does on this show. But that really is not the thing that makes the show. The acting is really great here. I think the writing's really done as well, especially the narration. I like the story here being told. This episode didn't necessarily... I definitely was hooked. I definitely was into it. I really enjoyed it. Am I saying that I'm hooked on the show? No, this is definitely one of the best pilots I've seen in the summer. I'll definitely say it. I think the top three have been Preacher, Outcast, and Queen of the South. Definitely those have been the three best pilots. And this is definitely, you know, like I said, the three best pilots. Definitely, I really enjoyed this episode. But I think the thing that really makes the show, and the thing that really made this episode, was the action. The action in the show is amazing. There were so many great scenes here. I was really on the edge of my seat several times in this episode. Even though I knew that the main character was going to survive, I still was kind of worried for her, because I didn't really know what was going to happen here, and especially we know she's going to die. How does she end up dying? How does she become so powerful, and how does she become the woman that she's seeing? Because obviously her future self is who she ends up becoming, so how does she end up becoming like her future self? Something I'm really looking forward to. I think that's going to be very interesting to see. My main problem with this show, and it's not because, you know, I'm going to say, it's not as good as Mr. Robot. The thing that made Mr. Robot so interesting is that those characters had so many interesting things about them. Teresa right now, there's not really much else going on there except, she was an innocent girl that was thrown into this situation, and that's basically how she ended up where she was. I mean, it's a good way to start, definitely, you know, how she started from, you know, rags to riches. I think it's a good story. It's one we've seen a million times, but I really did like what she did on the show. You know, she's not completely a good girl. She's done a lot of things. You definitely get it, but she's never really, she's kind of been thrown in this situation and doesn't really know what to do now. And I really did like what we saw of her in this episode. I think she did a very good job. It's just a lot of the characters here don't really have the, I'm just going to say they're not as compelling, and they don't really have the, grab that you're just immediately latch onto these characters in the way to a Mr. Robot. Not that they're bad here. It's just Mr. Robot, I think, is a much more interesting premise. I think this is going to be a great show regardless, but Mr. Robot so far is just a lot more interesting. But again, Mr. Robot, there were some things here that I didn't love about, Mr. Robot. I mean, I don't really say there wasn't anything I didn't love in Mr. Robot, but at first, I think the first episode is a great episode, but it's not the best episode of that show. It's probably the one episode where it feels like something normal, but Queen of the South definitely is not all like Mr. Robot. It's not as psychological, it's not as, it's definitely much more in your face, and that's fine. I like that it is something different. I like this trying to be its own thing, and I hope this show is successful. But overall, guys, what you guys thought of this show? Love to hear your thoughts on it. I overall really enjoy this pilot. Did it do a lot for me? Not as much as I thought it was going to, but it was a great first episode. I really did enjoy it. Is it something that I'm going to look on the show and be like, oh, the show had an amazing pilot? It wasn't an amazing pilot. I thought it was a very good pilot. I really enjoyed it overall. The action was amazing, and definitely that was all great. But the pilot overall I thought was really great. That was a very good start. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode. Love your thoughts on it. We'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for the series premiere of American Gothic. I know I've meant to review this show, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.